Cogitator 977, Precinct House Quintus, Hive Primus Planet Tertium. Audio log recovered from personal Vox recorder. Assigned to Palanite Enforcer Sergeant Davos Kane. Badge number 4792. Date stamp 7992, 41st Millennium. Status: Enforcer Kane listed as missing. Presumed deceased. This recording was discovered in the evidence locker, seal unbroken, 3 months after his disappearance. Warning: contents deemed spiritually hazardous by Precinct Confessor. By authority of the Palanite Marshal, this record is hereby transcribed for review. Audio quality degraded. Multiple sections corrupted. The Omnissiah preserves what he wills. Playback commencing. The rain never stops in the Sump. That's what they don't tell you when you pin on the Palanite badge and swear your oaths to maintain order in the Underhive. They show you hollows of proud enforcers standing beneath the golden light of the upper spires, serving the planetary governor and the God Emperor's justice. They don't show you the kilometers of rust and darkness below, where the rain is acidic runoff from 10,000 years of industrial waste, where it falls in sheets through the hab levels like the tears of a dying world. I'd been walking the beat in Sump Section 12 for 8 years, long enough to know that hope died somewhere around level 200. And everything below that was just corpses that hadn't stopped moving yet. The Sump dwellers called us Tin Men because of our carapace armor, but they said it with a certain respect. We were the only law they had, the only thing standing between them and the gangers, the mutants, the things that crawled up from the recyc pools at night. The disappearances started 3 months ago. At first, nobody noticed. People vanish in the Underhive all the time, fall into processing vats, get caught by corpse starch collectors, just wander into the wrong junction and never come back. But these disappearances were different. They were selective. They were taking the broken ones. Old man Hectus, who'd lost both legs in a Prometheum fire and dragged himself around on a wheeled cart. Gone. The widow Morella, riddled with lung rot from breathing recyc plant fumes for 40 years. Vanished. A dozen others, all the same. The sick, the lame, the ones who should have been dead already but clung to life with the stubborn desperation that defined the lower hives. Someone was taking them, and nobody seemed to care. Nobody except me. I sat in my hab unit that night, the rain hammering against the corrugated metal roof, studying the files on my data slate. The blue light made the small room feel even more like a coffin. My service shotgun hung on the wall, sanctified by the Precinct Confessor, its blessed ammunition ready to deliver the Emperor's justice to heretic and Xenos alike. I'd used it to blow apart cultists of the ruinous powers, to put down mutant uprisings, to execute gang leaders who thought they were above Imperial law. But this case felt different. Wrong in a way I couldn't articulate. The first real lead came from an informant named Jack, a former ganger who'd taken a last bolt to the spine, and now sold information to keep himself in food and obscura. He contacted me through the usual channels. A coded Vox message, left at a dead drop in the markets of level 275. I found him in a drinking hole called the Rusted Throne, hunched over a cup of synthetic amasec, his eyes darting to every shadow. The place smelled of industrial solvent and human desperation. The other patrons gave me a wide berth. The Palanite badge had that effect. "Enforcer," Jack said, his voice barely audible over the grinding of distant machinery. "You've been asking about the disappeared ones." "I have," I replied, sliding into the seat across from him. "You know something?" Jack's fingers trembled as he lifted his cup. "There's talk, whispers in the deep places. They say there's a new church, the Order of the Star Savior. They say the saint can heal any wound, cure any disease. They say she performs miracles." I'd heard this before. Every few years, some charismatic madman would set up a cult in the Underhive, promising salvation to the desperate. Usually they were chaos worshippers, their miracles fueled by the warp, their salvation just another path to damnation. The Palanite enforcers would raid their temple, execute the heretics, burn the place to ash, and life would go on. "Where?" I asked. "Sub-level 88, Jek said. "In the old Generatorium complex. The one that's been dead for 2 centuries. But Enforcer, I'm telling you, this ain't like the usual cult rabble. People who go there come back changed, happy, peaceful, and their wounds..." He shook his head. "Old Marta, she had the bone rot so bad you could see it through her skin. Went to see the saint. Week later, she's walking straight, no pain. I seen it myself." "Heresy often mimics the Emperor's grace," I said. "That's what makes it dangerous." Jack leaned closer. "Maybe. But here's the thing that don't sit right. The people who go there, they don't come back as raving lunatics. They come back better, calmer. They help their neighbors. They share food. They pray to the Emperor proper-like, not to any dark gods. It's like they found something real down there." I left Czech with a handful of throne gelt and made my way deeper into the Underhive. Sub-level 88 was in the oldest part of Hive Primus, where the architecture dated back to the Age of Strife. The walls were black with age, covered in Gothic script so ancient that even the precinct lexicographers couldn't translate it all. The air was thick with the smell of rust and ozone. The old Generatorium complex loomed in the darkness, a cathedral of forgotten technology. Its plasma reactors had gone cold before my grandfather was born, but the structure remained. Too massive to tear down, too dangerous to repurpose. The locals avoided it, said it was haunted by the ghosts of the tech priests who died when the reactors failed. I checked my shotgun, loaded with blessed ammunition, and activated the luminator mounted on my shoulder. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing corridors choked with debris and decay. I heard them before I saw them. Voices, singing. Not the mad howling of chaos cultists, but something else. Hymns, beautiful, haunting hymns in low Gothic, praising the Emperor, asking for his mercy and guidance. The sound echoed through the ancient halls, transforming the dead Generatorium into something that almost felt holy. I followed the sound, my boots crunching on broken glass and rust. The singing grew louder, accompanied now by what sounded like hundreds of voices. I emerged onto a maintenance gantry, overlooking a vast chamber that had once housed the main reactor. And I saw them. Hundreds of people, maybe 1,000, packed into the chamber. They'd cleaned it somehow, swept away the debris, and hung glow globes from the ceiling. Makeshift pews had been constructed from scrap metal. At the far end of the chamber, on what had once been the reactor control platform, stood an altar draped in white cloth. And behind that altar, hidden in shadows that the glow globes couldn't quite penetrate, was a figure. The Saint. I couldn't make out details from my position, but I could see she was tall, robed in simple white fabric. Her followers gazed up at her with expressions of absolute devotion. But it wasn't the mad-eyed devotion of chaos cultists. It was something gentler, peaceful. They looked like people who'd found genuine comfort in a galaxy that offered none. The hymn ended, and the Saint began to speak. Her voice was soft, melodious, carrying through the chamber with perfect clarity. "Brothers and sisters," she said, "you have come to this place broken and forgotten. The Imperium above does not see you. The noble houses do not know your names. But the Emperor sees all his children, even those who suffer in darkness, and he has sent us to bring you into the light." The congregation responded with fervent agreement, voices raised in praise of the God Emperor. I listened carefully, analyzing every word. So far, nothing heretical. Nothing that deviated from standard Imperial creed. The Saint spoke of the Emperor's love for humanity, of the duty to serve, of the hope for a better tomorrow through faith and unity. But something was wrong. I felt it in my bones, a wrongness that had nothing to do with the words being spoken. I watched as the Saint called forward the sick and injured. They came, one by one, and she laid her hands upon them. I couldn't see what she did, but I saw the results. A man with a twisted leg walked away straight. A woman covered in rad sores, left with clean skin. An old man who'd been carried in on a stretcher stood and walked on his own. Miracles. Real miracles. Or something that looked so much like them that the difference didn't matter. I needed to get closer. I needed to see the Saint's face to understand what was happening here. I made my way down from the gantry, moving through the shadows at the edge of the chamber. The congregation was so focused on their Saint that they didn't notice one more figure in the darkness. As I moved closer, I began to notice details that made my skin crawl. The congregation members all had a certain similarity, not in their faces or their clothing, but in something more subtle. The way they moved, the way they tilted their heads. And now that I was closer, I could see that many of them were bald. Not the natural baldness of age, but a smooth, complete absence of hair, with strange ridges visible on their scalps. Ridges that caught the light in odd ways. I'd seen those ridges before, in training hollows, in briefings about Xeno's threats, Genestealer hybrids. The realization hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't a cult of chaos. This was something worse. Something that the Palanite training manual said was one of the greatest threats to Imperial worlds. A Genestealer Cult. The Saint wasn't performing miracles through faith or warped sorcery. She was spreading genetic contamination, transforming her followers into alien hybrids, preparing them for the day when a tyrannid Hive fleet would arrive to consume the entire planet. I should have retreated immediately. called for backup. Contacted the precinct marshal, who would contact the Arbites, who would contact the Inquisition. This was beyond the scope of a single Palanite enforcer. But I needed to see. I needed to know for certain. I crept closer to the altar, using the shadows and the congregation's distraction. The saint had her back to me, still tending to the sick. I could see now that her robes concealed a body that was wrong, too tall, too angular. And beneath the fabric, I glimpsed movement that suggested more than two arms. Just like the briefing hollows had shown. The patriarch of a Genestealer cult, the progenitor of the infection, the alien intelligence that bound the cult together through psychic control and genetic imperative. I raised my shotgun, finger on the trigger. One shot, blessed ammunition. I could kill the patriarch, cut the head off the cult, save the planet from the horror that was coming. But then I saw the front row. Seated in places of honor closest to the altar were figures I recognized. Not from the Underhive, but from the upper spires. Nobles, merchants, and in the center, wearing robes that concealed but couldn't quite hide the regalia of his office, was Governor Tertius himself, the planetary governor. The man who ruled this world in the Emperor's name. The man whose orders I was sworn to obey. He sat in the front row of a Genestealer Cult sermon, his face bearing the same peaceful expression as the sump dwellers around him. And on his bald head, just visible in the light of the glow globes, were ridges. He was infected. The entire planetary government was probably infected. The Palanite precinct houses, the Arbites, the PDF regiments. How far did the contamination spread? How long had the cult been growing in the darkness, spreading its genetic taint through every level of society? I backed away slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs. I needed to get out. Needed to get to a Vox-caster. Needed to send a message off-world, to the Sector battle fleet, to the Inquisition, to anyone who could stop what was happening. But the saint had stopped her healing. She stood motionless for a moment, then slowly turned toward me. I saw her face. Or rather, the thing that had once been a face. Purple chitin covered most of it, with 4 eyes glowing in the darkness. Her mouth opened, revealing fangs designed to inject genetic material into victims. And her 4 arms spread wide in a gesture that could have been welcome or threat. "Enforcer Kane," she said, and her voice was still melodious, still beautiful, despite the alien horror of the source. "We have been waiting for you. You have questions. You seek to understand. That is good. The Star Savior embraces those who seek truth." The entire congregation turned to look at me. 1,000 faces, some human, some bearing varying degrees of alien corruption, all of them smiling, all of them peaceful. "You see our family," the patriarch said. "You see the love we share, the healing we bring, the hope we offer to those who have none. Is this not the Emperor's work? Does he not teach us to care for the least among us?" "You're Xenos," I said, my voice steady despite the fear. "You're corrupting humanity, preparing this world for consumption by the Hive fleets." The Patriarch laughed, and it was a sound of genuine warmth. Consumption? No, Enforcer. Ascension. We do not destroy. We unite. We bring all life together in perfect harmony. The Star Children are coming, yes, but they do not come to devour. They come to embrace, to welcome us into the greater family. To end suffering, end war, end the endless grinding misery of Imperial existence. Governor Tertius stood, his eyes meeting mine. When he spoke, his voice held the authority of his office, but also something else. Something that sounded almost like pity. Sergeant Kane, I know your record. 8 years of faithful service. You've seen the worst the Underhive has to offer. You've watched people suffer and die in the Emperor's name, for an Imperium that doesn't even know they exist. Look around you. These people were dying. Now they're healed. They were alone. Now they have family. They were hopeless. Now they have purpose. They're abominations, I said. But the word felt hollow even as I spoke it. They're free, the governor replied. Free from pain. Free from fear. Free from the endless crushing weight of Imperial dogma. And soon, the entire planet will be free. The day of Ascension is beginning, Sergeant. Right now, Vox-casters across the Hive are broadcasting our message. Cult brothers in every precinct house, every PDF regiment, every noble house are revealing themselves. By dawn, Tertium will belong to the Star Savior, and you can be part of that. You can lay down your weapon and join us. Let us heal your wounds. Let us show you a better way. I looked at the faces around me, the former Sump dwellers who'd been crippled and sick, now healthy and whole. The nobles who traded their power for something they clearly believed was better. The governor who'd betrayed his world for what he thought was salvation. And I thought about the Imperium. The Imperium that ground people to dust in its factories. That sent billions to die in wars across the galaxy. That measured human life in terms of productivity quotients and tithe requirements. The Imperium that had let the people of the Underhive rot in darkness for 10,000 years. The Patriarch extended one of her 4 arms toward me. Join us, Davos Kaini. Let us make you whole. I raised my shotgun and fired. The blessed shells tore through the Patriarch's chest, staggering her backward. The congregation erupted in screams, but they weren't screams of rage. They were screams of anguish, of genuine pain, as if I'd wounded each of them personally. Which, in a sense, I had. The psychic bond that connected them to their Patriarch meant they all felt her pain. I fired again, and again, pumping shells into the alien horror that had infected my world. But even as she fell, even as purple ichor sprayed across the white altar cloth, she was still smiling. Too late, she said, her voice growing faint. Already too late. The message is sent. The Star Children hear our call. They are coming. They are coming. The congregation surged toward me, not attacking, but reaching out with hands that wanted to embrace, to welcome, to infect. I ran, firing behind me, the blessed ammunition tearing through corrupted flesh. I heard the governor's voice calling my name, still trying to convince me, still trying to save me in his own twisted way. I made it back to the gantry, then to the corridors, then up through the levels of the Underhive. Behind me, I could hear the sounds of the cult spreading through the sump, their hymns echoing through the darkness, their message of peace and unity and ascension drowning out the screams of those who resisted. I reached my hab unit, barricaded the door, and activated my Vox-caster. I sent out a priority distress signal on every Imperial frequency I knew. Astra Militarum, Adeptus Orbites, Battlefleet Gothic, the Inquisition. Anyone who would listen. This is Palanite Enforcer, Sergeant Davos Kane, Badge 4792, Hive Primus, Planet Tertium. The planet is compromised. Genestealer Cult infection has reached the highest levels of government. Request immediate inquisitorial intervention. Request exterminatus authorization. The cult is activating. Repeat. The cult is activating. They're calling the Hive fleet. We have days, maybe hours before the Vox-caster died. Every light in my hab unit went dark. Through the walls, I could hear the sound of footsteps. Hundreds of footsteps. Thousands. The cult was coming, not to kill me, to save me, to heal me, to make me part of their perfect family. I loaded my last magazine of blessed ammunition and waited in the darkness, listening to their hymns growing closer. They sang of the Emperor's love, of unity and peace, of the Star Children who would bring paradise to this suffering world. And I realized in those final moments that they believed it, every word. They weren't lying. They weren't deceived by chaos or driven mad by the warp. They genuinely believed they were doing the Emperor's work, that they were healing the sick, feeding the hungry, bringing hope to the hopeless, that the Tyranids coming to devour this world were actually saviors. The door to my hab unit burst open. Silhouettes filled the doorway, backlit by the sickly glow of the Underhive. I raised my shotgun. "I'm sorry," I said to them, or to myself, or to the Emperor, I wasn't sure. "I'm sorry, but I can't. I can't join you. I can't let this happen. Even if you're right, even if the Imperium is a nightmare and you're offering something better." I took an oath. I swore to defend humanity, even if humanity doesn't deserve it. Even if the Imperium is a monster, it's our monster, and I'll die defending it. I pulled the trigger. End of audio log. Enforcer Kine's body was never recovered. 3 days after this recording, Inquisitor Valdez of the Ordo Xenos arrived in system with a detachment of Deathwatch Space Marines. Investigation revealed Genestealer Cult infiltration, extending to 73% of the planetary government and 41% of the general population. Planet Tertium was declared perdita and subjected to exterminatus by cyclonic torpedo bombardment. Estimated death toll, 8,400,000,000 souls. The Tyranid Splinter Fleet, designated Hive Fleet Moloch, arrived in the Tertium system 6 weeks later and found only ash. The fleet departed after consuming the remaining biomass from the planet's surface. Enforcer Sergeant Davos Kane was posthumously awarded the Medallion of Valor for his actions in identifying the cult threat and transmitting warning to Imperial authorities, allowing for intervention before fleet-scale Terranid infestation could occur. His name has been inscribed in the Precinct House Quintus Memorial Wall. The Palanite Marshal's Office notes that 17 other enforcers from Precinct House Quintus were revealed as cult infectees during the Inquisitorial Purge. Kane worked alongside them for years, ate with them, trusted them. They were his brothers. He never knew. This concludes the recovered audio log. May the Emperor have mercy on the souls of the fallen. May the Machine God preserve their memory in blessed data. May the Omnissiah grant eternal function to all cogitators. Ave Imperator. Playback terminated.